This PowerPoint is going over Europe in time period 4, specifically their cultural changes, intellectual and religious reforms. And I want to start talking about the Renaissance. We already talked about this a little bit. We talked about the Italian Renaissance and why the Renaissance began in Italy. But that was more time period 3. So when looking at time period 4, we're going to see the Renaissance shifting through the rest of Europe, specifically to Northern Europe. And one of the things that's going to help that happen is the European printing press. They're going to get a lot of the technology from China and from Arab nations that are going to spread it through the Silk Road into the Mediterranean trade networks. But Johann Gutenberg is going to make some changes to the printing press and make it more accessible to Europeans. So the first printing press is going to start in Germany, and then it's going to spread like wildfire, and other people are going to be using the technology. The most popularly printed book was the Bible. There were 10 million copies printed in 238 towns by 1500. So we're going to see an increase in literacy. We're going to see an increase in the availability of books. And what's neat is that even if you don't have literacy, what they can do is they can print in woodblock art. So you almost have these inscriptions where people don't know how to read, they can still understand what's being conveyed through these printings because it's just a piece of art. It's going to lower the price of books and allows ideas to spread more effectively. And these are ideas we're going to be talking about in this unit, like the Reformation, Renaissance writers, absolutism, stuff like that. So the printing press is going to go along with all of those movements. In terms of education, we're going to see a rise in universities, not only just in Italy, but in other parts of Europe. They're going to be studying two things. Humanities is more of a liberal arts, where you're looking at old Roman classics, literature, old Greek classics, language, and ethics. And then scholasticism, which is more of a focus on reason and combining that with faith. They can't move away from faith right away because it's still a very Christian-centered Europe. But in terms of reason, they're looking at questioning why things are happening, how they're happening. It's going to change the way that people think, and people become more individualistic. Some church leaders are going to see this as blasphemy. They want everyone to continue believing what they had already believed in. And we're going to see the Renaissance move from Italy to the north. Regions like France, the Low Countries like the Netherlands, Germany, and England. Ideas are still not going to be used by the lower class. Unfortunately, the lower class isn't really going to be affected by change almost until more books are printed in the vernacular, more books are printed with just images, and then the Reformation is really going to help spread ideas to the lower classes. And some characteristics of the Northern Renaissance, it's more of what we call Christian humanism, where you blend secular ideas or non-religious ideas with Christian devotion. And we see increased wealth for monarchs. This is an example of a Northern Renaissance painting. You see some more vivid colors. You see life of peasants being conveyed in these. And again, if you want to see these, you should watch Frozen. It's fun to see the character jumping up and seeing these Northern Renaissance paintings. In terms of writing, we also see a combination between individualism and Christianity, sometimes even where the authors are urging reforms in the church. So one of those pieces is called The Courtier, teaching people how to act in court. The Prince by Machiavelli, discussing politics and what the perfect leader is like, sometimes conflicting with what the church preaches. And then Shakespeare is one of the most famous Northern Renaissance authors based in England. He's a playwright. And in his plays, you'd see classical themes mixed with medieval culture. And he's going to be sponsored a lot by the monarchs. He's going to write plays about monarchs, but then he's also going to touch on classical themes like Julius Caesar. In terms of books that start moving more towards the Reformation and questioning the church and society, Thomas More's Utopia is a famous one, originally written in Latin but then translated to vernacular. And he's going to describe a fictional ideal society, and that gets people starting to think, what would a perfect society be like, and what does ours look like, and how does that compare? And then Erasmus is going to work almost at the same time as Thomas More, and he's going to write a book called In Praise of Folly, where he's almost making fun of the society at the time, making fun of merchants and wealthy people in the church. And sometimes they're not even necessarily sure what he's making fun of, the people who are reading it, but it's a good commentary on the time period to see what was going on. And this is also going to be translated into a lot of vernacular languages.